to Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Sam Sugar, and we are again creating another victim video today. Today is New Year's Eve, 2018, and we are looking to interview individuals who've had experience with guardianship, in particular those who feel as though the guardianships were inappropriate or abusive or exploitative. I also want to remind everybody about this book. If you don't know anything about guardianship, if you feel like you should, I wrote this book exactly for that reason, so that people could understand the threat that's posed to them. Today we're talking to Richard Freer from Miami. Richard, hello.
Hi, Dr. Sugar.
How are you today?
Well, we're looking forward to celebrating the new year with gusto and verve.
Wonderful. So we're here to talk about this guardianship. Who was this guardianship directed at?
This was directed at my beloved uncle Emery Sorenson and his wife Joy, and it went on back in 2013 and 2014.
And what court was involved?
This was involving probate court in Miami, and Judge Maria Korvic was presiding.
And Maria Korvic is the chief judge of the probate court in Miami-Dade and has been for a very long time. Can you tell me what started this? What was the situation that triggered someone to go to a judge or a lawyer and ask for a guardianship?
Well, I'm going to hold up letters from the Miami-Dade County Building and Neighborhood Compliance Department where
I'm afraid no one can see.
No,
Richard, we can't see it. I'm sorry.
Okay. It was a ridiculously flimsy complaint about an unsafe structure where, in fact, it was just some wet drywall in the roof of my uncle's house. My uncle had a very beautiful house in Miami Shores. He was a retired postal worker for many decades. He was a Navy veteran, tremendous service record, big, strong, healthy man, and a beautiful wife. But Ronald Zepp and Ricardo Roig of the Dade County Building and Zoning Department were overzealous, unreasonable, and vengeful. So he was a veteran of the Postal Service after 34 years of service. He decorated veteran of the United States Navy. So
now,
I loved him.
What was the reason that he was declared incapacitated? What was going on? Just because he had some wet drywall?
Yeah, and it seemed that Abel Cedeno and Ricardo Roig were just not happy with the fact that he didn't bow down and kiss their feet. He would have paid for the repairs, the minor repairs, but these bureaucrats just wouldn't try kindness instead of their combative tactics. When I attempted, go ahead.
Oh, it's just hard to believe that building code inspectors could trigger a guardianship. How did they do that?
Well, it was a tangled web of circumstances. The probate attorneys who profited handsomely, who were appointed by the probate court, just railroaded him into a jail-like facility.
And the judge appointed a guardian just like that?
Yeah, and I went to the court. I tried to say that I'm a retired professor, University of Chicago and Washington U graduate degrees, employed as a vocational rehabilitation counselor. And they wouldn't listen to me. The judge shouted me down and said, do not talk in my courtroom. It was terrible.
And was he examined by 3 examiners?
I never was able to find out anything about that. I complained to Katie Sorenson, the commissioner. Nobody ever gave me any answers. I did get a response from WSVN's Carmel Cafiero, investigative reporter, and it was terrible.
So how long has this guardianship been in effect?
Well, let's see. I actually started in 2010, and the battles went on to 2014.
And how many lawyers did you employ?
Well, interestingly enough, and I'll hold up this letter from Mr. Cowan, Paul Cowan, about the guardianship. It was disgusting that lawyers were just totally unresponsive.
How many lawyers were there trying to defend you, supposedly?
Well, I'm looking over the iPad records here, Dr.
Well,
Sugar.
let's put the iPad away and let's just focus on a conversation, okay?
All righty.
Okay, so you hired lawyers. They weren't able to do what you needed them to do. What wound up happening once the guardianship was initiated? What happened to your relative?
Okay, I do want to say it was Paul Cowan, Michael Swan, Esquire, Richard Danso, and J. Maurice Finkel, Esquire, and Comprehensive Personal Care Services. And I think there was just abusive discretion all the way along on the line.
So after the guardianship began, how did your uncle do? Did he thrive? Was he okay? How did that work out?
What was the question again?
How did your uncle do in the guardianship? Did he thrive? Did he do poorly?
Oh no, it was brutal. I mean, here's a man with 1 million friends in Miami Shores who interacted with all of his friends and so forth, his neighbors. But then he's put into this nursing home and it just beat him down. It was just terrible. I wept to see this shell of a man smashed down by the system. I tried to complain to Judge Korvik. She wouldn't let me talk. I tried to go to the TV people. WSVN was somewhat responsive with Kamarel Kafiro. But yes, he was beaten down in that nursing home. I remember taking him to the beach at 79th Street with my family, my wife and sons. And he stood there and looked out at the ocean, remembering we talked about his service in the Navy. It was enough to make your eyes wet to see him standing 6 feet 3 inches tall, remembering his time as a decorated naval service officer. And now he was just shrunken by the system.
Was he medicated in the nursing home?
We couldn't find out a thing about what was done in the nursing home.
So were you allowed to see him?
Not often. It was very bad. And I commend you for what you're doing with this organization.
Thanks. But I really want to drill down into your story. What about other members of your family? How did this whole thing affect them?
Oh, all of his sisters flew in from California, especially Verl, who I think would be willing to do an interview with you. And Hazel and my mom, Harriet, everybody, all of his sisters tried to get involved with this.
And were they successful in any way?
Oh, no. The doors were shut in their face by the lawyers.
So tell me, how much money has disappeared from your uncle's estate that he worked his whole life for?
You know something? I never wanted to even approach that. I was just so heartsick about his being smashed down like that. I just didn't want to really, Dr. Sugar, get into the money aspects of it. But it was substantial. I mean, they probably got his house. Oh, I know they got his house, which is a serious house, Miami Shores.
So having been through this affair for years and years and years, what would you say to those people who might be watching this video about what to be careful about with getting involved with this system?
Well, Dr. Sugar, I have friends who were retired judges in the synagogues I attend, and I'm I walk on eggshells talking about this, but to the press and to the folks that come to rallies at the courthouse with me, I say that we've got to speak up. We've got to not be kowtowed into letting them rip us off anymore. This is a terrible thing going on.
Let me ask you, did your uncle have advance directives?
You're
not sure.
I'm not sure. I mean, he had a daughter and a son and a wife, and I'm not sure. I really never wanted to really get into those details, Dr. Sugar.
So it's the emotional pain that you're really interested in letting people know about.
Oh, yeah. I mean, to see a guy like that being blasted down, it's just sickening.
So how many years now has this business gone on?
Well, it's been 8 years of nightmares.
And is your uncle alive?
No, he and Joy passed away in this nursing home.
Was he buried where he was supposed to be buried?
Yes.
Well,
yes.
that's fortunate, because we've seen so many cases where people were just immediately cremated.
Cremated.
Yeah, which is of course against the Jewish religion anyhow. But fortunately, that didn't happen to him. I think your story is very similar to all the other stories I've been doing. It's just as awful and just as heartbreaking.
Kol hakavod for your courage, and we appreciate, and we give you a round of applause.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much.